In a village cradled by rolling, endless hills, lived a young man named George. His days were a tapestry of sighs and shadowed dreams. He saw the world not as a land of opportunity, but as a rigged game where fate had dealt him a losing hand. "If only I were born elsewhere," he'd mutter, watching the sun dip below the hills. "If only fortune smiled upon me." He longed for a different life, a grander destiny, yet his energy was spent blaming the stars rather than reaching for them. One crisp morning, as the dew still clung to the blades of grass, a traveler appeared on the path. He was old, with eyes that held the depth of ancient rivers and a smile that seemed to know the world's secrets. He saw George sitting by the road, his face a mask of familiar discontent. The traveler stopped, not with pity, but with a knowing glint in his eye. "You seem troubled, young man," the traveler said, his voice as smooth as worn stone. "You carry the weight of the world, but your shoulders are your own." George scoffed. "What would you know of my burdens? Fate has cursed me. I am destined for this small life, this endless cycle of nothing." The old man simply chuckled. "Fate is a river, my boy. You can either be a leaf tossed about by its currents, or you can learn to build a boat." He then reached into his satchel and pulled out a simple, unlit candle and a single match. "I have a task for you," he said, handing them to George. "A challenge. Take this candle. When the sun sets tonight, light it. Your task is to carry it, lit until the sun rises again. Do not let the flame go out. If you succeed, meet me at the highest peak to the east. Perhaps you'll find the fortune you seek." George looked at the candle, then at the old man. It seemed a foolish, simple task. "That's it. Carry a candle." "That is it," the traveler confirmed, his smile unwavering. "But the night is long, and the path is not always straight." With that, he turned and continued his journey, disappearing over the next rise. George felt a flicker of something new, not hope, but curiosity. A part of him wanted to toss the candle aside, to dismiss it as the ramblings of a crazy old man. But another, smaller part, the part that still held a glimmer of his forgotten dreams, was intrigued. What was there to lose? As dusk painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, George found a sheltered spot behind a large boulder. He struck the match, its tiny flare a brief star in the growing twilight. He touched it to the wick, and a small, determined flame sprang to life, casting a warm, dancing glow on his face. The journey had begun. He started walking, his hand cupped carefully around the flame. At first, it was easy. The air was still, the path familiar. He felt a bit foolish, walking through his own village, holding a lit candle. People he knew watched from their windows, some with curiosity, others with amusement. George ignored them, his focus narrowing to the tiny, fragile light in his hand. But as he left the village behind and ventured into the wilder paths that snaked through the hills, the night began to show its teeth. A breeze whispered through the trees, growing into a persistent wind that tugged and pulled at his flame. George's easy stroll turned into a tense, careful shuffle. He had to turn his back to the wind, using his own body as a shield. He felt the chill, but his attention was singular: protect the flame. He wasn't thinking about his miserable life or his cursed fate. He was thinking only of the wind, his posture, and the delicate dance of the light. Hours passed. The moon cast long, eerie shadows that played tricks on his eyes. A rustle in the bushes made him jump, and he nearly dropped the candle. His heart pounded. He realized how much of the world he missed when he was lost in his own complaints. The sounds of the nigh, the hoot of an owl, the chirp of crickets, the rustle of unseen creatures were a symphony he had never bothered to listen to. Each sound was a potential threat to his focus, a distraction that could cost him his flame. Doubt, cold and sharp, began to creep into his mind. This is pointless. A voice whispered in his head. What am I even doing? This old man is probably miles away, laughing at the fool carrying a candle through the night. He slowed his pace, the weight of his old despair threatening to return. He looked at the flame, so small, so vulnerable. It seemed like a perfect metaphor for his own hopes. And in that moment, he felt a surge of defiance. He had come this far. He would not let this little light, or his own spirit, be extinguished by a whisper of doubt. He pressed on, his resolve hardening. He found a small cave to rest in when a sudden shower passed through, shielding the candle with his coat until the rain subsided. He learned to read the wind, to anticipate its gusts. He learned to walk with a steady, measured pace that didn't jolt the wax. The journey wasn't about strength, it was about attention. It wasn't about luck, it was about adaptation. As the black of night began to soften into the deep blue of pre-dawn, George found himself on the path leading up the highest eastern peak. He was exhausted, his arm ached, and his clothes were damp, but the candle was still lit. The flame, though smaller now, burned as brightly and steadily as ever. He reached the summit just as the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, setting the world ablaze with gold. And there, sitting on a rock and watching the sunrise, was the old traveler. George walked towards him, holding up the candle. The flame seemed to salute the rising sun. "I did it," George said, his voice hoarse but filled with a pride he hadn't felt in years. "The flame never went out." The old man smiled, his eyes twinkling. "I see that. Tell me, young man, what did you think about on your journey?" George paused, reflecting. "At first, I thought about how silly it was. Then I thought about the wind, the rain, the path. I had to watch every step, anticipate every gust. I had to shield the flame, keep my balance, stay focused. I didn't have time to think about anything else." "You didn't think about your terrible fate?" the traveler asked gently. George looked surprised. "No," he admitted. "I forgot to." "Exactly," the old man said, standing up. "Last night, you were not a victim of circumstance. You were the guardian of a flame. The wind did not care about your past. The darkness did not care about your feelings. They were simply challenges to be met, and you met them. You adapted, you focused, you persevered." He gestured to the world, stretching out below them, now bathed in the morning light. "Your life is that candle, George, and the world will always be full of wind and rain and darkness. You can spend your life cursing the wind for blowing, or you can learn to shield your flame. You are not defined by the challenges you face, but by how you choose to carry your own light through them." George looked from the sunrise to the small, flickering candle in his hand, and for the first time, he understood. The fortune he was looking for wasn't a prize to be found, or a destiny to be handed to him. It was the strength and focus he had just discovered within himself. The power wasn't in changing his fate, but in owning his focus. He blew out the candle. The journey was over, but his life was just beginning. He walked down the mountain, not as the boy who blamed the world, but as the man who knew how to carry a flame through the night. So, what's the candle in your life? What's that one small, important thing that requires your full focus, that if you just protect it from the winds of distraction and doubt, can guide you through any darkness. Find it, protect it, and watch as your world begins to brighten. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more stories to inspire your journey. We'll see you in the next one.